What is up, everybody? Almost caught John yawning again. I saw that. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Cross Chop Podcast. It is officially our first episode we can do breaking down a game. I am excited to be here doing this, coming off of a regular season game finally. John, 24-20 loss to the Eagles last Thursday night. I know it's been a few days. Typically, in a normal week, we'll be going the day after a game, but you've had about well over 72 hours to sleep on the opening loss to the Eagles. What's kind of your overall expectations? If you don't mind, I will start here because it's encouraging, yes, but you also feel like you let one get away because there were so many opportunities there in the second half to steal a win on the road. What's kind of your overall feelings about this coming off of it?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic because a lot of the areas that we thought the Cowboys are going to be the weakest, they actually performed pretty adequately. The run game was pretty good. The run defense game outside of at least the traditional run defense was pretty good. Against Saquon Barkley, better than I thought it was going to be. And so I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that the things that hurt them the most are things that are inherently fixable. Things like the execution of catching balls, things like that. And the little mistakes that kind of cost them the victory, I think, are things that are very fixable and things that they can get on the right track, moving forward with week 2 and moving forward with stuff like that. So I'm cautiously optimistic, even though, taking Jalen Carter off of the Eagles definitely changed the math on how the game was, projected to go. I think that was a very, very big loss for Philadelphia, especially their interior run defense. Because I think that if Jalen Carter was there, it would have definitely created a different dynamic in the run and pass games because just of his ability to impact the game in both areas. He's one of the, 2 or 3 best interior defensive linemen in the entire NFL right now. So losing him was definitely a big deal, and that kind of definitely changes the picture a little bit of how everything looked. But overall, like I said, cautiously optimistic, given that it was a loss and they kind of let it get away because they had a few different opportunities to win that game.
Yeah, and it's tough because in the second half, you're held scoreless against a front that did not have Jalen Carter. You had put 20 points on them in that first half. Things were rolling. If you had told me we'd be going into that second half with only 3 points, I would have told you were smoking something great. It was tough. And so from your perspective, what went wrong offensively, what went right defensively in that second half that kind of flipped the game on its head? I think, at least for me offensively, it was just too many missed chances. They were able to drive down the field, and it's kind of what the story was last year when Dak Prescott was healthy. They were able to drive down the field. They can't capitalize in the red zone via turnover or any other sort of, hiccup that they have offensively. But defensively, things really flipped on its head too.
I think the thing that went wrong on offense is just the lack of execution in key moments. All of CD's drop passes, Ferguson's drop pass, Schoonmaker's drop pass, Miles Sanders overlooking an open running lane again, showing bad vision, the fumble. Mm-hmm. I think if just one of those things doesn't happen, the Cowboys potentially win the game. And if multiple of those things don't happen, the Cowboys could put up 30, 40 points on the Eagles defense,
Yeah.
Like if you take away the Miles Sanders fumble and you take away CeeDee Lamb dropping a ball in the breadbasket, that's 14 points right there, most likely. And if the Cowboys are in the mid-30s, and people are talking about how fantastic the offense looked. That's why I was kind of confused about the talking point that was coming out the day after, that the creativity that Shoddy's shown on offense in the first half wasn't there in the second half. And I just think that's looking at it too much from a results-based outlook. I think the motion was still there. He was still varying up looks. He was still varying up different things. Some people have talked about that he relied a little bit too much on the pass, but I like the aggressiveness. I'm never going to go against, or be disappointed in Shoddy for being too aggressive. I think the aggressiveness is something that's good. It's something that is going to pay off for the Cowboys in the long run, especially given their personnel in their passing offense. So I definitely from a play calling and design perspective, I really loved almost everything that Shoddy did throughout the game. So I was really, really happy with that. And the thing that just ruined them are things that Shoddy can't control, and that's just the lack of execution. And the sad part was it was a lack of execution from primarily your best player.
Stick with us here on Cross Chop because back in training camp, we were both saying, hey, the importance of pre-snap motion in this offense is definitely shown. You could see it from not even being at camp, John. The all of the pre-snap motion that was being utilized at camp, you saw that manifesting on the field. And this was via Mina Kimes on a stat from Next Gen Stats. Dallas used motion at the snap on 42% of plays in this game against Philadelphia. Last year, they ranked 29th league-wide, which we've talked about that quite a bit on motion at the snap. 42% would have ranked fourth. So if you're ranking the biggest differences you've seen in this offense so far, it's got to be the biggest one, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely using the pre-snap motion. The under center play action games were great. And just the variety in the run game, using traps, using different methods to pull linemen and get them out in space. I think that those are the biggest things the biggest differences we saw from kind of the McCarthy offense and the Shoddy offense this year. And one great thing, we talked about a ton last year was in the years prior is McCarthy's offenses to start the season have been very bland, very static, very unimpressive. And then you go into this year and Shoddy's, gunning from the very beginning. The talk of using only the 7-iron was definitely true because he held it all back in the preseason. We didn't see any of that really. And he whipped it all out in week 1, and I was very, very happy. And I think that's something that's going to pause, but I think that's something that's going to definitely do them favors going forward through this season, because the best thing that you can do for an offense is to stress the defense and create dilemmas on the defense that can create easy opportunities to create offense. And I think that's exactly what Shoddy was doing.
Yeah, and he did whip out some fun stuff. Let's go ahead and talk about this offense that we did see on Thursday night. Mike McCarthy always talked about it, and it was one of the few good points that he made in press conferences, was that it takes about 4 or 5 weeks to really throw out an offensive system before, you can scout opponents going into these first 4 or 5 weeks, and there's still going to be a level of unknown, and there's going to be a layer of unknown. But once you get to that week 6, week 7 threshold, you pretty much see everything in a game that you would have already seen on film based on those first 6 games or whatever it may be. With a first-year head coach, that's even more extenuated, I would say. I mean, especially with a Shoddy system, he hasn't been calling an offense in 4 or 5 years. And so it's probably going to take 8 weeks for him to throw the kitchen sink out there and put everything on film. That's half a season we're talking about at that point. Overall, I thought it was an encouraging start because you saw a lot of the things that Cowboys fans were pleading for last year. You saw a lot of those differences this year. It's not only pre-snap motion, but it's the offensive lineman getting put out in the run game and thrown and pulled and pinned. The Miles Sanders run, which we'll talk about in the next segment, you saw Terrence Steele get out there and deck a safety that created that 50-yard gap that he was able to run through. Now, had Jaden Blue been running that probably would have been a touchdown. That's a different story. Again, we'll get to that. Overall, though, I thought the offense as a whole was much more improved, at least from a week 1 to week 1 perspective. We put all the week 1s that Mike McCarthy had in a vacuum with this one. I think you can see some substantial changes that you saw here in 2025.
Yeah, 100%. I kind of touched on the last one, but all the pre-snap motion, the under center play action, the different condensed sets, the spread sets, the using a lot of 3x1 instead of just playing 2x2, creating stress on a defense. I think all of that stuff. I think if you just look at it from a design and a scheme standpoint, the Cowboys this week 1 were much more difficult and much more stressful to defend than they were in the 2 previous week 1s, and that's for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, and from Dak's perspective, I mean, there is no stat box that I think he's had in his career that is more misleading than this one, because you look at it on paper, 188 yards, no touchdowns. That is not the performance he had. I mean, you guys at PFF, I think y'all graded it perfectly. Him having a 90 grade per you guys. I thought that was accurate because you saw his ball placement. You saw his mobility on display. Very rarely did he make a mistake. I think there was only a couple mistakes I could think of off the top of my head. There was one in the fourth quarter where he threw it into triple coverage to Schoonmaker when there were some other guys that he probably could have checked it down to. I think that was
Honestly, I think the throw to CD where he dropped it in the breadbasket where Tolbert was right there, I think that he was throwing it to Tolbert.
I think he may have been too.
They were running what's called 4 verticals, and CD basically ran a post into Tolbert's lane that he was running his vertical, and that's definitely not how you draw it up. I think CD was just like, I beat my guy. I have so much space. I'm going to go get it. Type of thing, because it was definitely thrown on the line for where Tolbert was running. And so I think weirdly, I think that might have been the worst throw Dak Prescott had all game, outside of, I think, the throw to Pickens in the end zone where he didn't give him a shot. I think that was also a bad throw.
Yeah.
I think awkwardly that might have been his other worst throw of the game, and it hit CeeDee Lamb right in the breadbasket, right in the hands, and it should have been either a super long gain or even a touchdown, catching it in stride. So I thought that was really, really interesting and kind of funny looking back on the all 22, because we didn't really get a good look at it from the game view and the broadcast view, and they didn't really adequately show the replay that we could kind of see the entire play design altogether.
Yeah, he showed off his legs. I think that was the most important thing that you wanted to see out of Dak Prescott here in week one. Was there was that one moment where we all thought he was sacked and he shed it off. I think it was maybe Moro Ajomo that got in the backfield. Check me on that. But he was able to shed to his left and make a play to the left side.
Oh, no, that was Jordan Davis. He shook off a mountain. He shook off a mountain.
That's a big time.
360-pound mountain.
Yeah, that's big time. And to see that kind of strength and mobility on display. Now, granted, he even laughed at himself after the game because he was talking about the scamper he had, and he was like, yeah, I definitely felt slow out there. So, yeah, is the speed maybe taking a step down over the years? Probably so. But it was really good to see that mobility because he's going to need that not only this year, but he's got 4 years on his contract. Like, he's going to have to show that. Overall, I mean, you guys at PFF put a 90 grade on him, but what kind of grade would you put on Dak as far as the ABC?
Yeah, fantastic. I think it was an A. I think another thing that was very impressive was that he was able to beat the blitz and beat pressure, getting to his hot routes, knowing exactly where his receivers are going to be and where his outlets are going to be when he's pressured or when his process is sped up. I think he did a really phenomenal job of that, and that's why his numbers against pressure and against blitz were so good against the Eagles. And like I've been saying, I think that bodes well for the future. If Dak Prescott is going to be operating at this high of a level throughout the season, the Cowboys have not only playoff hosts, but they can actually make like a decent run in the playoffs when you have a quarterback playing at that kind of a level, Yeah. And as we saw, the Cowboys went against the defending Super Bowl champions, and they were right there to the very end. So if Dak Prescott continues to play like that, the Cowboys are going to have a shot in every single game this year.
And this is one of the more intriguing under-the-radar offensive storylines, and the Basement Boys points it out here. No pre-snap penalties, at least offensively. There was one defensively where 12 men were on the field. Schottenheimer accredited that to a coaching mistake today. So if you're talking about from a player discipline standpoint, no pre-snap penalties and absolutely none offensively. So that was really, really good to see, especially with a guy like Tyler Guyton, especially with a guy like Tyler Booker. I mean, it was his first game, and you could have easily made excuses for early game jitters, but he was ready for the task early and often. If I could get your evaluation on Tyler Booker and his debut.
Yeah, I thought it was an adequate debut. I thought we saw some of the power things. He did a lot of good things when blocking one-on-one, but he had significant issues against stunts inside. He was very late to relate to multiple stunts, to grab loopers or to pass off the penetrators and grab the loopers. He was really, really, really struggled in that facet, and we saw that started to give the Cowboys a lot of issues toward the end of the game and got a lot of quick pressure in Dak Prescott's face that kind of sped up his process and eliminated the ability to press the ball downfield. But I think that's something they can get cleaned up as the season goes, just with experience. He's still a rookie, and we talked about it a little bit the week before, being a rookie, not seeing all of the different, looks and the different ways that rushers set up their stunts and what have you. I think that it's not something I am terribly worried about for the rest of his career, but it's definitely going to be something we need to keep an eye on for the next month or two.
What is the best thing for Dak Prescott, and as far as things going on around him?
What'd you say? Sorry.
The best thing for Dak Prescott as far as things going on around him, a healthy run game. Yes, I wouldn't necessarily qualify the run game as healthy from Thursday night, but encouraging nonetheless.
Not on death's door like it has been in previous years.
Yeah, exactly. I thought coming out of the gates with Javonte Williams and the amount of touches he got in that first half, a little bit surprising, but not shocking, just because of all of the confidence that this coaching staff spoke into Williams throughout the course of training camp in the preseason. I mean, they didn't throw him out in the preseason. That's how confident they were in having giving him opportunities going into Thursday night. Miles Sanders, take that 50-yard run away, which is tough to do because that's a big positive. Don't get me wrong. I don't know why he was active over Jaden Blue. There is nothing behind the scenes that could justify that decision for me at least. And even on that 50-yard run, Jaden Blue ain't getting caught on that run. He's not getting caught by a linebacker on that run. He is scoring. He's a sub 4.3 guy on a healthy day. And Miles Sanders, he follows that up a couple plays later with the fumble. I don't know, man. I would activate Jaden Blue this week and, figure out another place to, put another inactive guy on the list. But that's how I felt about this week.
I thought there were definitely, if there was a place to critique Shoddy, I think it was definitely in some of the personnel decisions for the active roster and to put in the starting lineup, on the defensive side of the ball, playing our favorite player, Kenneth Murray, with the green dot, obviously was a very bad idea. And then I think making Miles Sanders active over Jaden Blue was a very big mistake because the reason why you put a veteran in there is because he's solid. He's going to make the right decisions and he's not going to make mistakes. But he did all the opposite. The one run was very good. But like I said, another run, he missed a wide open hole and where it was designed to go so that he could bounce it outside, something that he has done his entire career. Not a good decision. And then the fumble, something, again, that has plagued him throughout his entire career. And it continued to plague him here in a very, very crucial situation for the Cowboys. So I don't get it at all, really. I hope it's something that's rectified in the coming weeks because I think if Miles Sanders was this like super burner that wouldn't get caught by a linebacker and he brought this like new different facet to the offense, that I would understand more that they do it. But obviously he doesn't have the same juice that he had before. Getting caught from behind by Zach Bond is not something that you should do if you're going to be the quote unquote speed back in the 1-2 kind of duo. And I just didn't really understand that decision. And hopefully it gets rectified in the future.
Javonte Williams, overall encouraging performance.
Yeah, very encouraging. I think the one thing that encouraged me most is just the vision he got. He was consistently attacking the right holes. And then just the toughness and his ability to turn his legs to create those extra dirty yards that we heard about with Zeke Elliott for all those years. He did it so well. He was consistently tough to bring down. He was consistently carrying defenders for 1 or 2 yards. He was just getting the most out of those run concepts without using blazing speed. And I think he proved in week 1 that he's someone who can be a viable starting caliber running back for the Cowboys. And I think the key is for the Cowboys is just finding him kind of the lightning to his thunder.
I think you saw the Clayton Adams influence, obviously, the most in the run game scheme. You saw these guys getting pinned and pulled more in that Thursday night game than they did all last season or all the last 2 seasons, you could say, as a whole under Mike Solari and Mike McCarthy. Was there anything that stood out, maybe a player that stood out for me? I've been talking all offseason about Terrence Steele and how this system is going to benefit him more than pretty much anybody offensively because it plays into his strengths. You saw some of those strengths. You also saw some of his lapses that he has been used to having, both in pass coverage and pass blocking and run blocking. But overall, getting him out into space, and we talked about that Miles Sanders 50-yard run. You see him coming across the line of scrimmage and decking Reed Blankenship to clear that third level. And that's how Miles Sanders was really able to break into open field. You loved seeing that, but did anything specifically jump out to you in the run block scheme?
I think one thing that impressed me was just the power that Tyler Guyton played with, especially on combination and double team blocks. He was able to create a lot of movement in those situations, whether he was working with a tight end or he was working with Tyler Smith, the left guard. I was really impressed with his ability to create movement into widen running lanes in those situations. I thought he had some issues in pass protection, and I think that is something. I think people got a little bit over their skis watching him punch dude in the face, showing why he was boxing in the rain during the offseason. He put that technique to good use. But I thought that he was still struggled a bit in pass protection. He gave up 5 pressures, and people talk about this whole time. Next Gen Stats says his time to pressure was the highest among all the offensive linemen, but the time to pressure isn't really the important statistic. It's the time it takes you to get beaten on your block. And on those 5 pressures, Tyler Guyton was beaten almost immediately. He was having a really, really hard time, especially against Joshua Uche. He was having a hard time landing his hands and just making life difficult for them in that facet. But as a run blocker, I was more impressed with some of the impact that he brought in that situation. And I think obviously, like many people have said, is he missed the entire offseason. Basically, he's kind of still getting his feet wet, still getting comfortable. So I'm not super worried about his pass protection per se going forward, but it's just something to monitor, and it's definitely somewhere where he struggled in week 1.
This is kind of backing up a bit, but I do want to get your thoughts on this comment from our guy E-Man. Yeah, what's up with the Tolbert love? He clearly wasn't running crisp routes, and it looked like he didn't know where he was supposed to be. Don't believe he registered a catch in this game. If he did, it flew very under the radar. I'm going to double-check the stat box while you talk about it here, John. But overall, I mean, we talked about Tolbert coming into the year. You weren't going to have a higher value for Tolbert in a potential trade than you had going into week 1. But you have him now. You got to figure out how to use him. How do you use Jalen Tolbert? I mean, is it a situation where he's just kind of the holdover until Mingo comes back and then he's resorted to a wide receiver 5 type role?
I definitely think so. He's someone who I've always had trouble with just because I really appreciate receivers more that create separation with their route running. Like CeeDee Lamb struggled a lot with his hands, but he put on a route running clinic throughout the entire game against the Philadelphia Eagles and his ability to create separation. And obviously, Jalen Tolbert just has zero ability to do that. Even when he makes receptions, he's not creating separation. And anytime he has separation, it's usually scheme created, not because he's doing something special with his route running. So, yeah, I just don't think he's someone who can be a legitimate top 3, number 3 receiver. I think he's someone who's much better as a special teamer, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 type. I've never been the biggest fan, and I think week 1 kind of cemented that fact for me.
He did have a catch for 0 yards.
I
don't remember it.
How could we have forgotten that monumentous occasion?
There was a question in here about Ryan Flanoy, trying to find it, but I'll just go ahead and highlight T-Jacks here. Flanoy over Tolbert. I think you're going to see Ryan Flanoy get activated onto the 53-man roster this week. Perrion Winfrey slid back to the injured reserve today. That puts him out for at least 4 weeks. They have an open roster spot to do with that. I think it's probably Flanoy that gets the elevation and is signed back to the 53-man roster. So just something to keep an eye on. Another downward thing we could talk about coming out of week 1. Me watching this game live, if you're talking about it defensively, no group cost this team more than the linebacking core. It was awful in the first half, letting Jalen Hurts pretty much do whatever he wanted outside of the pocket. And this is also kind of on Eberflus too, and not only him being this linebacker guru, but also not dedicating a spy after Jalen Hurts runs down your throat over and over and over again. And then eventually in the second half, I thought the defensive interior did a much better job of being able to shore up the A and B gaps that it didn't even ask the linebacking core to have to rectify issues, where that's where I feel like these last couple of years, that's where most of the issues have been had, because you didn't have a guy like Kenny Clark there in the interior. So guys were just pushing into the second level. And then you had Eric Kendricks and Damone Clark and whoever else trying to account for those mistakes, and they were always having bad run game discipline. You kind of felt the same in the first half. It looked the exact same in the first half. And I remember writing coming out of that first half, like, geez, man, they had the same exact run game issues that they had before Kenny Clark. In the second half, it flipped on its head. But overall, linebacker play. Look, John, we've been campaigning for Maris Liufau, I feel like, since before the preseason even. But what would you do as far as coming out of this game and rectifying these linebacker issues?
Send Kenneth Murray to the moon.
That's how I feel too. That's how I feel too. Because
I've been saying since he got picked up, and there's been zero things that have made me come off of that. He was off. I hate being this punitive to players, especially because obviously they're NFL players. They know much more. They work so hard and everything. But he was awful. He was god awful. He was so bad. I mean, I think, was it the touchdown run that he didn't even react off of his spot?
Yeah.
And like the running back just literally just ran. And then the blocker came, and then he just his processing is super slow. His processing is wrong. He had a couple good plays in coverage where he was close to his man and he limited gains and condensed throwing windows on less than a handful of coverage snaps. But as against the run, he was terrible bad. He was so bad. He just wasn't reading. He wasn't hitting his gaps quick enough. He was making life difficult more. And these were on plays where the defensive tackles were doing their job. These weren't even plays where they were getting blown back, making his read a little bit more difficult, getting displaced out of a gap, so he had to kind of adjust post snap to what they were doing. No, these were just regular, you have a gap, take your gap and make a play, and he just didn't do it. He's like, it's just so frustrating watching him play. I don't think, and as far as the run game as a whole, I thought the defensive tackles, especially, I thought Frank Clark did a good job. I thought Solomon Thomas had a very up and down performance. He had some very, very good plays, but he also had some very, very bad plays where he's getting displaced out of his gap, getting pushed back multiple yards by double teams. He's just not someone who should be playing that A gap and taking on a double team, because he was getting moved out. He was getting displaced, multiple yards on vertical displacement, multiple gaps on horizontal displacement. It was really a struggle in those situations for him. But when he was getting single blocks, he was doing a really good job of piercing the backfield, shedding, making plays in those situations. So he kind of had an up and down. But as far as the linebackers go, I think you got to put Marist in the game, and you got to pray that DeMarvion Overshown is going to be able to come back in some capacity at this point of the season and kind of save our linebacking corps, because I don't really see anything that's gonna improve them drastically besides putting Marist into the fold. Moving Jack Sanborn to the green dot Mike linebacker. Probably moving Clark to the will, and then moving Marist to that Sam linebacker position that he has kind of taken in the previous years. I think that would probably be the best three linebackers in base defense that you can do at this point. But, if the given, I'm just not optimistic, because they gave Kenneth Murray the green dot for a reason. So I'm worried they're just going to stick it with him for the long haul, and it's just going to be so painful. And it's just like, Eberflus, what are you doing, my guy? What are you doing? And honestly, yes, the defense played better in the second half, but I was really down on the way Eberflus called the game, just in his inability to adjust to Jalen Hurts' ability to run the ball in key down and distance situations. Not putting a dedicated QB spy on Jalen Hurts in the red zone is malpractice. Not putting a dedicated spy on Jalen Hurts on these third and medium situations is malpractice. How are you not doing that? Is it something that you haven't been in the division and haven't faced them very often, so you're not as accustomed to being in those situations and the best way to defend him? I'm not sure, but that is something that cannot happen from a schematic standpoint when you have a quarterback who arguably the best thing he does are when he uses his feet. And I thought, I didn't like a lot of things that Eberflus did. I didn't like how he was relying on spot drop zone coverage instead of match concept zone coverages. That's why you saw the Eagles being able to move the ball so much in the short to intermediate passing game, because they were finding voids in between the zones and just nailing those passes and just keep matriculating the ball down the field in that sense. So I was really unhappy with the way Eberflus really attacked this game and designed and called this game from a holistic standpoint. I think, obviously someone like Mike Zimmer, the defense as a whole didn't perform so well, but anybody who paid a close attention last year saw that the cards were stacked against him. I think with this personnel that the Cowboys have now, it's better personnel even without Micah Parsons, because of just all the players that have come back from injury. I really think that Zimmer's style of defense would have fit this defensive personnel so much better, and they would have gotten much better results with a Zimmer type of defensive coordinator than they did with Eberflus yesterday.
The linebacking core owes Thursday. The linebacking core owes Osa Odighizuwa a big steak dinner or something, because Osa was in the backfield in that first half. You go back and look at the highlights of the defense in that first half, you're going to see a lot of 0097 in there getting pressure in the backfield, both in the pass game and the run game. There were multiple times you see Osa creating that lane, linebackers flying down in that lane sometimes and missing the guy in the backfield, whether it be a Jack Sanborn or a Kenneth Murray, even Damone Clark. I mean, these guys were just straight up missing Saquon, straight up missing Will Shipley, who runs about as fast as me and you, John. I mean, it was not encouraging, and overall, it was disappointing to see the defensive interior play well, and then the linebacking core not shore it up, because it's kind of been the issues have started up front in the past couple of years. We've talked about that ad nauseum, about how the defensive interior, if you're not having success up front, it doesn't matter what linebackers you have back there. You can only clean up so much. they weren't cleaning up shit in this game. And so it was really tough to see overall. But
I thought Odighizuwa was the best defender by far. I think he was the best defensive player the Cowboys had throughout the game. I think where in the past there was the defensive tackles that were the issue, I think if we're talking about just the front four, I think the defensive ends were a much bigger issue against the run, especially Sam Williams and Dante Fowler. I thought that they had really, really poor performances against the run. I thought that they were very undisciplined against the run, took very poor pursuit angles. They didn't play their gaps correctly. They didn't set strong edges. Both of them, I think, were very disappointing in that facet. Honestly, I think Nealon and Ezeraku did a much better job playing the run on the edges than either of those two did. And I would not be surprised is if we get a month or two into the season that those two are your starting edge defenders, not who it actually was Sam Williams and Dante Fowler.
Comment here from T-Jack. Sanborn at least sees it. He's just slow. I slightly disagree. I expected more out of Sanborn in this game from a run discipline standpoint. I didn't necessarily see it. There were a couple times where he was in the lane and he was slow, so I see where you're going at it with here, T-Jack. But the consistency overall was not there for Jack Sanborn.
But I would have if Kenneth Murray would have performed like Jack Sanborn, that would have been a miracle.
Yeah, you would have been fine with that. You would have been fine with that. Same from T-Jack here. Any interest in throwing Shamar James out there? Yes, absolutely.
Especially if we keep getting performances like we did on Thursday. You know, if that keeps happening for 2 or 3 more weeks, throw the rookie in there. Can't be much worse. I guarantee you it can't.
This one cracks me up. Murray is like Zeke from last year. No preseason play and terrible in-season play. Let's move on to the film room here, John. I know you got some clips up here ready to dive into. Just overall, just some good looks that you saw from the All-22. If you can present it, then I can throw it up here on screen. We can make this work.
Full screen. Let's see. Let's try it. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, we got no producer here today. Our producer, Caden Gates, everybody, is having his first child this week. So shout out to Caden. Baby should be coming in here any day. We're excited for him. Shout out to Caden. But he's going to be off for a few days, so we're going to be the ones trying to figure this shit out.
I'm not going to be able to do it because I have a new computer and I'll have to shut everything down.
You know what? Go ahead and start talking about your thread, and I'll pull it up.
All right, I'll send you the link too. So I think the first thing that I thought that was intriguing, the one aspect that I thought that Eberflus that I liked, the one kind of like look that he gave that I liked was in the goal line, how he was using kind of a 6 defensive lineman front, kind of like a little of a 6-1 look, where he used 4 defensive tackles in the traditional line. So we had 1 nose tackle, 1-3 technique, 2 defensive ends as heavy 5 techniques or even 6 techniques, and then he had 2 edge defenders really come outside of them, and then Kenneth Murray was the lone linebacker. And the Cowboys, when they had that on the goal line, they did a really good job. They made 2 consecutive stops against the Eagles' vaunted short yardage running game. They didn't get no tush pushes, but on the traditional running game, they did a fantastic job. I think they stopped it for no gain or 1 yard gain. So I really, really, really liked that the Cowboys used those looks and were unafraid to use them against these heavy personnel and against the Eagles' vaunted running game and against their like really, really talented offensive line. I think that showed a really unique and beneficial way to use the personnel that the Cowboys had in the run game.
Okay, so you're seeing this right here, right, John?
Yep.
All right, so we got from left to right, Donovan Ezeraku, Solomon Thomas. Is this Kenny Clark, Osa Odighizuwa? And then that would be Nealon and then Sam Williams, I think. Or excuse me.
No, I know in the previous one it was Toya, Frank Clark, Solomon Thomas, and Osa Odighizuwa were the 4 down, and then Sam Williams and Donovan Ezeraku were the 2 edge defenders.
I will say very quietly, while the run game was awful last year defensively, they were actually pretty decent in the red zone. I wonder if Eberflus maybe took some influence from that coming into this year. If you look at their red zone run efficiency last year, is actually more encouraging than what the rest of the run game numbers looked like defensively for this team. And it looks like with this jumbo package that they've at least figured out what would be the opposite of a NASCAR package, like a tank package. That's what this would be.
Yeah, a tugboat. Tugboat package.
Here we go into this one. Anything you want to talk about with this one?
Yeah, it's just the same thing with the 4 defensive tackles, and you see with their ability to occupy different defensive linemen how it allows Kenneth Murray to get a free run to the running back. Just the ability to occupy. And then you saw that was one of the good plays by Solomon Thomas. And the late switch was good because you're changing blocking assignments. So I think this was all good in the hood here for sure.
Let's keep it moving. Sorry here. Again, working without a producer, but we're making it work. We're making it work, baby. Hey, talk about this one. I need to go grab my computer charger because it's running up on me.
Yeah, and I think this is just a play that kind of illustrates the undisciplined nature that Sam Williams was playing with on the edge. As you can see here, he's the outside. He's the edge defender. He's supposed to set a good edge, and he gets pinned inside because he tries to peek. He has poor footwork. Watch how he gets up on his outside leg. You don't want to be on your outside leg because it ruins your ability to widen and shed and go to your left, which is the side you're supposed to defend. You want to have your weight on your inside foot in that situation. But poor sloppy feet gets him put on his outside foot, and so he gets pinned inside by Lane Johnson, one of the best, obviously probably the best right tackle in football right now. And as you can see, they're able to get outside for a positive gain. That is undisciplined play. That is poor technique. It is all of the above.
Let's move on to the next one here. And a little bit of Dante Fowler.
Yeah. Really,
Dante was awful in this game.
Yeah, just a really poor pursuit angle. You want to stay up on their upfield shoulder. You don't want to get too far inside because of just like this. The whole thing as the backside pursuit defender is you have to prevent the cutback so you can't play too far underneath it, just like he did. He takes too narrow of a pursuit angle. You see he kind of changes his pursuit angle. He has it correct, and then he flattens it. He keep going just a little bit. Is it paused? Is Nick frozen? But yeah, he takes too shallow of an angle. Boom, lets the cutback lane, and that's just something you can't happen. You got to close down those opportunities to create tackles for losses. That is key for any defense, and the fact that he let one so easily slip through his hands. I mean, look at what Osa Odigizua did. You just totally nullified all of the good things that the other defenders did on the play just because of your poor discipline.
And that's exactly what I was pointing to with Osa. I mean, there were so many plays that you can point to in this all-22 where he is driving his matchup into the backfield, creating some issues in the run game, and then an end or a linebacker can't finish it on the other side, and then it ends up being a 3-4 yard gain. And it's an 8-yard difference, and that's big on some of these plays that turn into touchdowns.
And again, watch the play by Sam Williams here. Another really poor job of getting pinned inside. That if Osa didn't get so much interior disruption, didn't get so much penetration, they could have kept it on that same outside zone track, and that would have hit for a big gain as well. Look at that lane to the outside if Osa wasn't there.
Yeah. Look, Sam Williams has his back to the play in this shot right here. Let's move on to the next one here. More undisciplined, we just highlighted that one. All right. Malik Hooker. Man, I thought the safeties played really well in this game, and you're highlighting Malik Hooker here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that Malik Hooker, a lot of people talk about his coverage prowess, and that's the reason why he's on the field. But I thought he played extremely physically in this game, and he was very good as a support run defender. Very rarely do you see deep safeties come up and make a stop from the roof, as they say, or from depth. And he does an extremely good job here. It's just takes a fantastic angle, drives on the ball, keeps his good inside-out pursuit, and he drives through the ball carrier and doesn't allow much yards after contact. So I think that was a very, very good play, and it really highlights, I think, kind of the underrated portion of his game and of his contribution on last Thursday.
I love the instincts here, but my guy Malik, let's learn how to tackle, buddy. There were a couple of plays in this game where it was just like, man, you got to do better of tackling and wrapping up from Malik Hooker. Here's some more Osa love. I mean, again, we've talked about it. Osa had such a great game on Thursday night.
Yep, you see here the Cowboys are running a slant with their two left defensive linemen on the left. That kind of plays right into Osa Odigizsua's quickness. You could see how it kind of surprises the center. And the left guard wasn't ready to come over to help. just a really good way to confuse and mess with opposing blocking schemes. And also Diggle, because of his quickness and his strength through contact, was able to take full advantage.
Absolutely. Some more Solomon Thomas. Now, this one's not such a bright moment for Solomon Thomas, and I remember this play happening live.
And this was the play. Watch Kenneth Murray. Watch him. Look at what he's doing. He just run. He just oh no.
Yeah.
Like, what is he doing to you? Sorry, we're talking about Solomon Thomas here. Obviously, he gets taken for a ride, and I think that's the biggest reason why the Eagles are able to score here, because that gave him such a big running lane, and then Barkley was able to kind of just like slalom his way to the end zone. But just really, really poor job from both Solomon Thomas and Kenneth Murray on this play.
And what I'm confused here with is Damone Clark does his job. He fills this gap. You see Deron Bland doing his job on the right side, filling that gap. There's only one gap for you to go through, Kenneth Murray.
Yeah.
Why is there hesitation? He
wanted to sniff Solomon Thomas's hip pad for some reason. He probably thought, he was like, "Oh, you smell good today. I want to get a little whiff of that deodorante." Nope. I don't get it. I don't know. He's just such a frustrating player.
It is tough. Some Kenny Clark love.
Yes, and I think this is kind of the thing that you see the strengths of his game. This is his ability to stack and shed blockers with his strength in his hands, strong base. When he's able to make first contact and get his second foot in the ground quickly, he is a load to handle. And I think this play just perfectly encapsulates that.
This play very specifically, Schottenheimer pointed out today. I asked him, was there a play or two that really kind of showed you what Kenny Clark's impact is going to be moving forward? And he pointed this play out. He said you can see with his right arm, he just holds that guard, and then he falls back into the ball carrier and makes the tackle. You see the strength on display here. That lower body strength is elite.
The thing I love about him is look at how he moves the block in coordination to where the running back is. When the running back is kind of at the very beginning stretching to the right side of the camera, he moves the blocker that way. And then he sheds once the running back declares and cuts back downhill to try to get north-south. It's really a teach tape of how to take on and shed blocks as an interior defensive lineman.
Yeah. Really good rep by the D-line as a whole there as well. All right, some Jay Toya and Solomon Thomas love.
And this is just exactly what you want to see from your two defensive tackles, being able to take on multiple blocks, hold their ground, not allow those linemen to climb so that your linebackers can fill their gaps and give the running back nowhere to go. And that's exactly what happens here.
Yeah, and I thought Marshawn Nealand did a really good job in the run game in this one. We haven't talked much about Nealand, but I think you look at his impact coming out of this game, both in the run game and in the pass game, it was really impressive.
He was your best defensive end.
Yeah, agreed. Let's see. Here's some more Murray slander. Or not necessarily slander, because that would consider that it's false.
The thing is, I don't understand here is when they're running a running back screen, you know there's going to be blockers leaking their way out, and especially because you're supposed to, like when you're a linebacker, you're supposed to take that screenshot of where everybody is before the play so that you know, like, okay, if I'm running to my right, there could be a down block coming, there could be a crackback block coming, there could be whatever. He just has zero awareness and then allows a 185 receiver to put him on his knees.
Jahan Dotson should never be decking Kenneth Murray.
No.
That should never be happening. And we talked about this ad nauseum, needing a spy in the red zone, and this is a perfect example why.
And it's poor. And another thing, poor rush lane integrity from Dante Fowler. If you're going to go inside, it has to be in a situation where the defensive tackle is going to be looping to the outside to maintain, contain, especially in the red zone where the QB's legs are so lethal. And just poor job by Eberflus not having a spy in the first place, but still a very poor job by Dante Fowler of rush lane integrity. And that's kind of something that's been a little bit of his MO throughout his kind of career, is he makes kind of these undisciplined plays throughout games kind of sometimes. And that kind of takes away a little bit from the impact that he can have rushing the passer.
And I was disappointed about his effort overall on Thursday night. I mean, he didn't get home pass rush wise, was inconsistent in the run game. And we've already pointed out multiple clips here.
And this is kind of goes to my point that I was making about zone match versus spot drop zone. This is an example of spot drop zone for people that don't know. Watch how the linebackers aren't relating to a receiver, they're all dropping to a certain spot and reading the quarterback's eyes. Now, that's not always a bad thing, but when you're going against the offense that's doing such a good job of taking advantage of the voids in between zones and hitting those quick hitters before the QB's eyes can kind of take the linebackers to where the ball is going to be, it's just tough to really succeed in those situations. And I think if they would have done a more zone match where they kind of drop, but then immediately once they hit their depth, relate to a receiver. And as they're dropping, they're kind of looking at the receivers to find where to relate to. I think that would have condensed the throwing lanes a lot more in these short to intermediate passes that the Eagles are kind of feasting on the Cowboys throughout the game.
Jalen Hurts only completed one pass more than 10 yards in this game, and it was that 51-yard bomb over the top to Jahan Dotson where he just beat Kyer Elam. It wasn't bad coverage from Elam. It was just a better throw and a better route from Jahan Dotson, but only 1 yard or one completion that was over 10 yards in this game. That speaks to the second level, just not playing well in pass coverage either. Let's see. We've already highlighted that one. Let's keep going here. Yes. So they only blitzed 9 times. But there was some effectiveness.
Yeah, and especially when they were bringing corner cap blitzes, I thought that it was a really good job because it was like for this sack, Nealon gets the sack, but it's really set up scheme-wise because Deron Bland blitzing pulls Lane Johnson off of Nealon, and he's able, and that allows him to be free because the right guard wasn't prepared to take on Nealon with the blitzing corner coming over. So I'm hoping that in the future, Eberflus is going to, lean on the blitz a little bit more because that's really the only times that we were seeing the Cowboys be able to generate significant pressure were on plays where they were bringing extra defenders to affect the quarterback.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They did not blitz one time in that first half, correct?
I do not believe so, but I would have to look it up to be sure, to be honest.
And Eberflus is not a blitz guy, but
and he's not. That's something that we've lamented on about when he was hired, but
with this personnel, you have to.
Yeah. And especially because they come out and say that Jerry Jones comes out and says about the pass rush, we can scheme pass rush. Well, you ain't running sim pressures constantly where you're still bringing 4. So you better bring a blitz or something. Bring a blitz, bring a pressure, bring something, bring 12 men on the field. I don't know what you got to do, but you got to manufacture some pressure somehow.
Yeah.
And this was a really good rush by Dante Fowler. We talked about, all the issues he has, but this is the reason why he's on the field. And this is just a picturesque rush, just from the getting off quickly, the threatening of field very quickly, and then landing that cross chop on the outside wrist to beat the block, to get to the edge of the blocker and then apply pressure.
Okay, we've done a lot of defensive clips here. Which ones do you want to highlight offensively? You want to go through all of them?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right, Tyler Guyton. These are all 5 of his pressures. Let's talk about Guyton. I thought his hand usage was better than it was last year. I think that was probably the biggest note that I could pull from it. But there was just some times where his feet got caught being lazy.
Yeah, and he got his weight too much over his toes, so it made it difficult for him to recover in a lot of situations. And as you see here, see on that play, the people talk about time to pressure, but the time to pressure wasn't because he did anything. He got beat very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And it caused this.
What a ball.
I think that was the Tolbert. I think that pass was the Tolbert, not the CD. That's the hilarious thing.
I think it was. Yeah, the feet need to be better. And you wish he had the training camp reps to account for that. And that's just super rough. Man, this ball right here, or it's not this one, it's the next one. I just can't get over this throw. Whether it was to Tolbert or to CD.
That's the Tolbert.
Yeah, it probably
is the Tolbert, man. I just think CD was like, YOLO, that's mine.
Yeah, that one was interesting to watch. Gosh, it keeps refreshing all the way to the top. Okay, some interior love here. I like this. Let's dive into this one.
Yeah, Cooper Beebe, Tyler Smith working a double on Jordan Davis. Big boy. And the thing I love here is you see them work in tandem. Tyler Smith initiates, passes off to Beebe, and then climbs and gets the linebacker. That's just picturesque of how to combo block a 2-wide defensive tackle. Really, really good job.
Yeah, good stuff there. All right. Some Tyler Guyton.
This was just a fantastic play from both Guyton and Ford. Just knocking the initial double team, getting 96 onto his heels, getting him onto 1 foot. And then a really underrated thing is watch how Guyton climbs and still gets a piece of bond that gives Williams that extra couple inches to be able to get to that alley to the end zone. That's just a really, really good job by both of them on this play.
I hate to be Debbie Downer on this play, but you're lucky Terrence Steele didn't fuck this up for you. You see Terrence Steele just get beat right off the snap.
Luckily, he's on the backside, baby. Luckily, he's on the backside.
Yeah, if he got beat inside, that's a TFL.
But the props to him is the place you can't get beat is inside. So at least he's covering the inside and he's forcing the guy to take the long route to get there. Obviously, it's a bad rep, but if you're going to get beaten some way, it has to be outside.
100%. I'll keep moving along. All right, talk about this wham concept.
So this is a situation that we saw the Cowboys use a lot. And the difference between a wham and a trap play is where they leave an unblocked defender and it's an offensive lineman that comes across the formation to block him. Whereas in a wham, it's a tight end coming over in what's called a sift action post snap to come and block. And that's exactly what they do here. They leave the edge defender unblocked, number 56. And he gets whammed by the tight end coming across, and it creates a nice little crease. And the reason why this is good is it allows you to get hats on the second-level defenders very quickly and to create those running lanes, and it can create big runs, big running plays a lot of times when it works.
I just love seeing 40 getting his nose dirty in there. That's always encouraging to see. Okay.
Yeah, the corner out. Woo! Yeah. Woo! Had him in a spin cycle. Just a beautiful job. It's hard to see from this all 22. Yeah. But CeeDee Lamb does such a good job with his eyes, selling like he's going to the post before going to the corner. And just a great job with his footwork, tempo. All of it was perfect here. And, as much as Lamb's hands were an issue, he was route running the Eagles up left and right throughout the game. I think it was probably one of the best route running performances that I've seen from CeeDee. He was just so on point in those situations that it's a shame that his lack of ability to just catch the ball really took away from what should have been a 200-plus yard performance or something along those lines.
Overall, he dominated. I mean, he had Adoree Jackson and then Bennett later in the game when Jackson got hurt. He had those two guys in a blender, and they were doing such a good job of matching him up with having CeeDee Lamb seek out those guys in his matchups, and it allowed for these opportunities. It was just unfortunate, again, like you said, that he couldn't bring down some of those crucial passes in the fourth quarter. Some Tyler Booker love here.
Yeah, and this is where you just see him clearing out the front of the pocket for Dak. This is something I thought he did really good in his one-on-one blocks. He did a really good job. And the thing that I think helped him stand out in the pre-draft process is his ability to finish as a blocker. He's just always looking to drive people to the ground, and he's looking to make a play with a physical tone. And I just thought that this was a great play that encapsulated that.
All right, that's all we got here, man. Good stuff there from John. We'll try to dive into some more here coming up on looking toward the Giants this upcoming week. There's going to be some interesting stuff to dive into because I thought you saw just kind of a preview of what we're looking forward this week. I thought you saw some of their strengths on their defensive front, and especially in their second level. I like Bobby Okereke from the Giants linebacking core and from what they were able to do from a defensive front. But, oh, my God, that offense is bad. And that offensive line, it feels like it's just regressing every year despite the talent that they do have up front. I mean, it's at a point now with Andrew Thomas that I just don't even feel like you can even put him in the mid-tier of tackles anymore. And there was a time where, like, you had the conversation, it was like, hey, he's at the bottom of that top tier. And he's regressed so far. But we're going to talk more about that going into the
that I'm going to be looking for. There's that big son of a bitch from New York, Dexter Lawrence, that is coming to eat that interior offensive line. You thought Jalen Carter was going to be a big, tall ask last week. This week is an even bigger, taller ask from Dexter Lawrence this week. Going again, this is going to be a really, really good test for that interior trio of Tyler Smith, Tyler Booker, and Cooper Beebe, that if they can keep Dexter Lawrence from wrecking the game, he's going to be productive. He's almost impossible to stop. But if you can keep him from wrecking the game, the Cowboys offense will be able to find success. I promise you. You just have to stop that big son of a gun in the middle. He is so good. He is so dominant. This is going to be a huge test, and it's going to tell us a ton about what we can expect from that interior trio moving forward throughout the season.
Go ahead and throw some questions in the chat. We'll get to a few of them. Overall, you feel good about this upcoming week? I do personally, coming off of watching the Giants Commanders on Sunday. Brian Daboll said today that Russell Wilson will get the start once again. I'd be shocked if the Cowboys come out of here without a win. I would argue to say, John, that this is a really, really, really big game toward momentum for this team. I know it's early. I know it's only week 2. It's a lackluster opponent, but you got to get a win. I think this is a must-win here in week 2.
It's a division game. You do not want to start the division 0-2 in the division, not just a record 0-2 overall, but 0-2 in the division would be a very difficult hole to climb out of. But I think the Cowboys, if they can, like I said, if Dak Prescott plays like he did last week, the Cowboys shouldn't have much issue with beating the Giants. It should be, a 7-point plus spread on the final score if he's playing at that level. Now, if he gets a reduction in his play, then anything can happen, really. But if we get the Dak Prescott that we got in week 1, the game shouldn't be much of an issue.
Yeah, this is a good point here, too, from Trevor D. Dallas should be able to do whatever they want through the air against those Giants DBs. It feels like every time they try to address their secondary issue, it somehow gets worse. I mean, this year they added Paulson and Debo. I thought he played well against the Commanders, but overall, I mean, you have some issues on that back end.
100%. And, that kind of leads me into another point that I wanted to discuss, but we don't really have enough time to go into it too deeply. But George Pickens' route running when he's not the primary or secondary option on passing plays was left a lot to be desired. And I think that some of the issues that the Cowboys had on offense were due to, because the reason why you want your receivers to be running full speed is because they're not getting the ball, they're usually clearing space or clearing defenders so that you can create either create more space for your guys or create mismatches, what have you. And this play to CeeDee Lamb is just a perfect example. They're running a pick concept to the top of the screen where Pickens is supposed to pick DeJean for CeeDee Lamb. He's supposed to use his body to get in the way of DeJean so that creates more separation for CeeDee when he's coming on that kind of wheel route concept. But as you see there, very lackadaisical, doesn't even attempt to really get in the way, and he doesn't even finish his route. You'll see him start walking, and obviously the play still should have been executed. Lamb still should have caught the ball, but it shouldn't have been that difficult in the first place. There should have been just so much more space for CeeDee Lamb to work if Pickens would have done a better job, for lack of a better term, picking DeJean on the play.
Yeah, agreed. That's a good eye there, and I think it's something for sure to keep an eye on throughout the season because you're going to need these guys to help each other get open, especially in instances like that where it's so direct. There's so many indirect ways they get each other open, but when they have the direct opportunities like that, you're not going to get a pick route from Jalen Tolbert. You're not going to get it from Kevontae Turpin. You might get it from Jonathan Mingo, but you also need it from George Pickens. And so that's probably where it's tough.
And then when you add in the quote unquote business decisions he made in the blocking department throughout the game, it's just, I was disappointed in his performances on those plays where he's not the primary option. I think when he was the primary option, some of those catches that he made, really good job. When he was the primary or secondary option, he was running good routes. I really like the things that he's doing. But on those plays, the running plays, the plays where he's the third or fourth option in the passing offense, those plays need to get better. He needs to be more of a professional in those situations because they may not seem like much now, but they are going to create bigger opportunities for his teammates as a whole. So hopefully that is something that gets cleaned up in the future weeks, even though if you talk to the Steelers fans that have been in my mentions all the day, that's something that it's not going to change. It's something that they've been dealing with his entire career.
Well, John, this was a super informational episode coming out of this first game. We are on our normal schedule going forward. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Check us out every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday night. We're going to have episodes. We're even aiming for a post-game episode coming out of the Giants game. Since it is a noon game, we're going to try to see if we can make it work with everybody's schedule. But that is currently the goal, whiteboard plan. But before then, rejoin us on Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to get you all ready for this Giants game this upcoming week. Season's in full swing now, John. We are rocking.
Also, we're monetized now, bitches. Send them super chats in.
Let's go.
I got Coca-Colas that I'm trying to buy. I got other stuff I'm trying to buy for recreational opportunities. I got things I'm trying to do. I got expenses. So yes, please, if you guys are so kind, we would love those in the future. But thank you so much for riding with us throughout the beginning of this, helping us get to monetization so quicker than I ever thought was really possible, to be honest. So I really, really, really appreciate you guys.
Appreciate everybody that tuned in today. Smalls HD, Trevor D, John, T-Jack, Dustin Roberts, Chris Baller, 250, Sean L, the Basement Boys. Everybody that tuned in, Piston Broke, always checks in with us. Appreciate you, man. We will see y'all again on Wednesday night. Until then, stay blessed, everybody. Thank you for joining the Cross Chop. For John, I am Nick, and Caden somewhere tending to baby duties. But we'll see you on Wednesday.